guys know that there's an enemy that's out there with one thing in mind: to deceive, to hide the truth. Some of his deceptions: that the Bible is a myth, that God didn't create life, that life actually evolved little by little over millions of years, that God doesn't exist. If you really think about it, it's like a trick the enemy is playing. Like right now here in my hand, I have nothing else except this little red ball. But I'm going to take this little red ball and put it here into this hand. And I'll take a second red ball and put it in this hand. One here and one here, right? I don't have any in this hand. Where did it go? If you caught the switch, they're both over here. Exactly. And that's what we should be saying when we get some of these lies that do not match up with what the Bible says. What? Because this is what the enemy is doing. And on this particular topic, it's very important because there's two completely different explanations that try to offer an explanation of where we came from. Now, I don't know about you, when I was a little kid, I used to go to my dad's drawer, and I used to pull out a magnifying glass, and I'd go traipsing around the house, and I'm a detective, and I'm looking for clues, and I've got to solve a mystery because something doesn't make sense. That's kind of what we have on our hands here this morning. We have these two teachings being told to the whole world. But since they are completely opposite, it means that one of them must not be right. Evolution. Creation. So you know what we're going to do this morning? We're going to do like a little investigation with our magnifying glass. We're going to look for some evidence and look for some clues to see if we can gain some understanding to see which one of these could be the truth. And let's start for a second here with evolution. Now, according to evolution, our universe was created about 14 billion years ago. And it all happened at this event, which probably you guys have heard of, referred to as, what's it called? The Big Bang. A big giant bang that exploded. And from that giant explosion, the understanding is that nothing created everything. Now, wait a second. You know, I love science. But isn't it kind of strange that science would offer this explanation if you really stop and think about it? The idea is that nothing created everything. That's kind of strange. Because I've never seen nothing create something. It's never been proven scientifically. It is simply an idea. It is simply a theory that is offered to explain how this universe got here without a creator. Well, it must have created itself. The interesting thing is, we're dealing with a very clever enemy. And a lot of people are believing this. Okay, so let's unpack this a little bit. First of all, when it comes to science, let us get a basic understanding of what science is. I looked in the dictionary, and here's what it says. Knowledge of the physical or material world gained through two things. In order for it to be science, observation and experimentation. You need to be able to see it, and you need to be able to test it. It's a simple explanation. So just to illustrate what this means, I have a bottle here, and in this hand I have a lighter. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put the bottle right in front of my hand, in front of my mouth like this. I'm going to put the lighter on the complete opposite side. I'm going to try to blow it out. Here we go. Do it again. Now, do you believe that air is traveling through the middle of this bottle? No? Okay, good. Does that kind of probably mean then that the air is traveling around? Okay. Well, that's a simple experiment that we just did to prove an idea that air can travel around a round object. We just did an experiment. We saw it. We proved it. We observed it. We experimented it. And that is science. When people make claims, and if you want to test it to make sure that it actually is science, This is what you have to do to qualify it. See if you test it. All right, so let's look at some of the evidence. First of all, there is the fossil record. Now, fossils. Fossils are cool. I love fossils. Where do we find fossils? Are we in the trees, or where do we find fossils? Very good. We find them in the ground. Interesting things that we pulled out of the ground, and interesting things explaining how and what they are and how they got there. Now, first of all, evolution teaches in species that are changing. Things are constantly changing. And here's a chart that probably you guys have seen somewhere in movies and TV and school or whatever. The idea is, yes, of course, we're humans now, but before that, we were something else. That we've been changing. That we came from these ape-type creatures. And before we were ape-like creatures, we were more like these frog-type creatures. And before we were frog-type creatures, we were some sort of like fish-type creatures. And before we were fish-type creatures, they say that we evolved from something similar to slime. I have a little bit of slime here. Let's see if I can get a volunteer young person that can come up for a second. I saw this young lady right here. Oh, sorry. You can be next. Yeah, I hadn't seen her. Sorry. And thank you for coming up. What is your name? Jaleesa. Okay, so your job is going to be very difficult. You have to hold your hand out like a little bowl. And I'm going to put the slime in your hands. Oh, yeah. All right, I can get it over. Here we go. You love slime. It's a blackish greenish slime. It looks like a big giant bug. Just being real. Keep it real. Sticky, slimy stuff that you find in a pond. Now, so we have this cool looking slime here. Now, would you believe that this is a living thing right now? No. Would you guys agree? Not a living thing, right? No. Would you guys agree that if we wait a little while, it will become a living thing all by itself? But you know what? Maybe we just need to wait a little. You didn't give it enough time. Maybe if we just wait like a year, do you think it will become a living thing?
Yeah.
Maybe a year isn't enough time. Maybe we give it 10,000 years?
Yeah.
Maybe a miracle will happen if we just wait 1,000,000 years. Is that enough time? Isn't it kind of funny how maybe when pigs fly? It's interesting within the scientific community, sometimes when you can't explain something, you know what the solution is? Add time. That must have evolved into this. How did it happen? We don't know. Add more time. And we chuckle and stuff, but that's actually the explanation. If we can't explain something, we're not giving it enough time to happen, so therefore, give more time. But there's no scientific evidence whatsoever that this non-living thing will ever become a living thing. Why would we believe that this could become a living thing and continue to progress and get more complex as time moves forward? Isn't that strange? Very strange, isn't it? There's something like that, isn't it? Very weird. And you know what we're going to do? We're going to cover it up and give it to the other people. Thank you! That's fine. You're very welcome. Yeah, I don't believe too that stuff would just come to life from a non-living thing. It scientifically doesn't make sense, and definitely not cannot be proven. But we do see a lot of fossils in the ground. They say this evidence comes from the fossils. So what exactly are we finding in the ground? What are these fossils actually saying? I've actually been on several digs in Wyoming and in the Middle East, and sure, we definitely do find a lot of things in the ground. How they got there, why are they there, what do they mean? Okay, that is up for interpretation. Because yeah, the fossils are there. But what do they mean? Here's one example that I'm going to give you guys. This one's called Nebraska Man. You can see what he looks like. He's one of those in-between guys on that scale. Now, how much evidence, how much fossil evidence did they find for Nebraska Man? I put the complete list right up there. 1, 2. That's it. This drawing was produced from 1, 2. And not just a drawing, the whole belief as to how it was and what it looked like and how it walked and how everything came from 1 tooth. Now, I don't know about you, but again, coming back to that qualifying of science, I'm struggling. I'm struggling. Now here's the sad part, because that's not the end of the story about Nebraska Man. For those of you guys that know a little bit about Nebraska Man sat in the history books and the science books for about 40 years. Until somebody decided to check up on that tooth and try to, take a second look. And unfortunately, they discovered that the tooth was actually from a pig. It was from a pig. It did not fly. But it's interesting that it could have gotten so misinterpreted. And of course, they apologized. Oh, sorry, we made a mistake. We misinterpreted it. It wasn't from a transitioning fossil, whatever human. It was from a pig. And it's okay. You know what? We all make mistakes. They made a mistake. Oh, sorry. The sad part is you can still find it in the textbooks. The only difference is they don't have the tooth anymore. Now the tooth was, but we still believe in it. This is what we teach in schools. If you go to a public school, you'll learn about these guys. How much fossil evidence is there to actually prove it? Yeah. A tooth here, a bone here. Same thing with all these guys. Ramapithecus, Paking-Man, Horseman, Piltdown-Man. Little bone, little tooth, little whatever, and a huge imagination. Is that science though? If you want to make up stuff and believe it, that's cool. You guys can do whatever you want. But again, if people are relying on science to establish a basis of what you believe in your worldview, do you want to just base it on some guess that somebody's making? And again, there is evidence, and don't get me wrong, there is a lot of evidence in both camps. But a lot of the evidence that people think is like rock solid, waterproof, is full of holes. Piltdown Man is another example. In this case, Piltdown Man, which also sat on that chart for many, many years, turned out to be probably the largest scientific hoax ever perpetrated on our planet. Here's what happened. Scientists were so anxious to provide evidence for evolution. This is what he did. He took a piece of cranium of a human, but then he took the jawbone of an orangutan. He put them together, and he said, I found these together. Created a whole report on the process of how evolution and blah, blah, blah. And everybody was like, oh, wow, hallelujah, we finally found evidence. The missing link is finally not missing. Of course, like in the case of Nebraska Man, it sat there in the books again for decades until somebody discovered it and said, wait a second. And it was like, oh my goodness, the biggest hoax, the biggest trick ever perpetrated. And yet, everybody's all embarrassed and whatever. I mean, I don't know about you guys, but this disappoints me that science would get to that level where you have to depend on misinterpretations or hoaxes as part of your evidence. And it seems like all we're finding is, some bones. But to draw these huge conclusions from them, who knows what that is? It could be an extinct animal, it could be another pig. I mean, it's hard. And this science is not waterproof. You pull out a fossil from the ground, it doesn't come with a tag. This is what you see in the museums now. Very realistic. Now, it's not those little simple drawings anymore. You see very realistic statues, full size, complete with hair and wrinkles and the whole thing. And of course, America goes out there and they go to these museums and they see these museums and they're like, oh wow, this is what they're finding fossils of? Amazing, this is cool. But the exhibit won't tell you that this is an interpretation of what they found. They'll just say, look, this is what walked on Earth 4 million years ago. And of course, notice the liberty that they take when they create these statues. I mean, look at their feet, look at that guy's eyes. Looks like what? Human eyes. Now, I've been on these digs, I've never heard of anybody finding a fossil of an eye. So this is clearly interpretation, and they did that on purpose. To get people that walk by that exhibit and they see it, they're like, whoa. Yeah. That does look like evolution. It does look like humans came from that. Be careful. Satan. It's time for a game show. I like to see if the kids are paying attention. I have a question to ask, and if you think you know the answer, you can quietly raise your hand, and I just might ask you to answer yes or no. Can science prove that something can come out of nothing all by itself? All right, I see a hand raised. Yes, it's a fossil. Yeah, all right. Good job, good job. All right, let's keep going. Let's look at some more evidence for evolution. Dating machines. Now, I'm not talking about teenagers here. I know that one pay grade above your joke there. No. Dating machines are these machines that are created by scientists, and basically you put something in there to try to understand how old it is. So you push the button and it calculates and it measures and it tells you, boom, 450 million years old. Okay, that's kind of cool. I love this kind of science. I mean, it's just amazing what they're creating nowadays. But let's ask a couple other questions just to see if we can understand how these dating machines work and if this information is reliable. How old is this stuff? I mean, we see, you go to the national parks, and it's true, we do see some really old-looking stuff. I have here in my bag somewhere. Yeah, here it is. I got a piece of petrified wood. You see this in the museums, and you see little signs in the national parks. This is called, and they give it a name, 498 million years old, and whatever, and yeah, wow. The question is, how do they know? Was the machine there 498 million years ago? No. Okay, it's interesting. Here's another example that kind of starts to disprove this idea. This place is called Mother Shipton Cave. This is in England. It's a tourist place, and the reason why it's there is because the water in this spring has a certain exact mineral content. And you can go here and you can take like your favorite teddy bear or stuffed animal, whatever, and you put it in this water, and then you come back 4 or 5 months later and they give it back to you fully petrified. Wow. You know what we've discovered now? This process of petrifying has nothing to do with time. That's what's been taught for forever. Is, this rock took millions of years to petrify. I'm like, The process of petrification is actually quick. You can actually duplicate this in a laboratory in a week. What you have to ask is, what were the conditions that caused it to petrify? Because time has nothing to do with it. Here's another example. This is Mount St. Helens in Washington State. In 1980, something interesting happened in this place. Maybe you've heard of it. Crater at the top. The crater's a mile wide. That mountain exploded. Ash went all over the place. And tons of all that material that was there just down into a valley. It's an amazing place. I don't know how many of you guys have. Anybody ever been there and seen Mount St. Helens? Okay, 1 or 2 of you. We were actually just there a couple of years ago. We were filming a video series, and it's an amazing place. If you get a chance to go. We actually hiked up to right about that spot right there. It was really difficult because we were shooting a video and we had to drag a film crew up there. They were excited to go, but they weren't very happy with me on some of the other stuff that we were doing. Amazing place. Now here's why I bring up Mount St. Helens, because right here in the middle there's a lava dome that continues to form. The mountain continues to grow. New lava continues to come up. Now this is brand new rock. Brand new rock coming out. So here's what happened. Some scientists decided they wanted to test the dating machines. I'm like, hey, here's an example of some rock that we have a known age. Let's test it on these machines. Just see what it says. Just see what it says. So that's what they did. They actually climbed up there, took a bunch of rock samples, came back down, and they sent it out to laboratories all over the world that had these dating machines. They asked one simple question: how old are these rocks? They got the results back. They looked it over, and they were a little bit shocked because every single one of them had a totally different age. And I'm not talking about like 301 and 302. No. I'm talking about 300 and 3 million. And the other one said 400 million. And the dates were all over the place. And the scientists were like, wait a second. How could the same rock have so many different ages? I mean, which one's the right one? That's a problem. Yeah, cool. I like how they measure, but basically what they're measuring is how quickly the material decays. And that's cool. But when you use different dating methods, you get a bunch of different dates. So which one's the right one? Which one's the reliable one? That's kind of confusing. Same thing happened at Grand Canyon. In this case, the test was a little bit differently. The scientists went and they grabbed rocks from the top layer, and then they grabbed rocks from the bottom layer. And then they basically decided to send those two out. Now, according to logic, which of those should be the older rocks? The ones on the top or the ones on the bottom? The ones on the bottom, right? They asked a simple question. Here's two rocks, please date them. Tell us which one's older. We don't want numbers, just tell us which one's older. Every single one of them came back with the exact same response. The ones on the bottom are the older ones. I mean, the ones on the top are they flipped it. And of course, this perplexed the scientists again. I'm like, what is wrong with these dating machines? What are we missing? Why are we getting such strange results? Basically, a couple of these dating machine types, carbon-14, radioisotope dating, the way that they use the science to make the measurements, basically the calculations are based on many assumptions. Right? I mean, the machine wasn't there 3 million years ago, so it has to make some assumptions. I can live with that, okay. The question is, how reliable is it now if you're having to base your science on assumptions? And I want to illustrate this. I need a couple of volunteers. The young lady that I almost accidentally called up, where'd she go? Sophie? Where's Sophie? She left. All right, we'll get her later. How about you? And then let me get this boy right here. And then this boy right here with the bow tie. Awesome. Come on up. Oh, you both have bow ties. Sweet. All right, all three of you guys come up. Be careful here. There's cables and junk, and he's going safari. Awesome. All right, so you can stand right here in the middle, buddy. And you can come way over here, and you can stay right over there. Awesome. You're there. Why don't you come a little bit further this way, this way, this way. Awesome. Very good. We're ready. So here's what we're going to do. What's your name? David. Awesome, David. So on this end, I'm going to give you a cup. Okay? It's empty. You're just going to hang on to that for me. On this side, this young lady's going to help me by simply holding a cup, but this one I've filled with beans. Man, the cup is getting crushed. There you go. All right, David, I have a special job for you. You have to move the beans from that cup to that cup, but you can only move one bean at a time. Yeah? Off you go. Good. Keep going. Awesome. I'm estimating that it's taken him about 5 seconds to move one bean. So let us make some assumptions and project forward how many beans should David be able to move in 1 minute, assuming he can move one every 5 seconds. Anybody? 12. Very good. Okay. Let's go a little bit farther out. How many beans should David be able to move in an hour? 720. Okay. Let's assume a little bit farther out. He's picking up the speed. How many beans should David be able to move in 24 hours, one day? 17,200 beans or something like that. How many of you guys believe that if we come back at this time tomorrow, David will have moved 17,000 beans? Anybody? Can you take it? Why? Why would that assumption not work? If we just proved a second ago that he can definitely move one bean every 5 seconds, he's probably already moved 12 beans in a minute. He's probably going a little faster, which throws off our calculations a little bit. But why do we have a problem with him having moved 17,000 beans in a day? What assumptions have we ignored? What could go wrong? He gets hungry. He gets tired. He's got to go to the bathroom. He's got to go to bed. His mom wants to go home and homework. Are you in school already yet? Or not yet? Okay. There's a bunch of stuff that can go wrong, but did we take these into consideration? No. We just assumed nothing would go wrong. Everything would just be perfect. Do the math and then just multiply it forward as long as you want and nothing will go wrong. But that's a problem. Because the real world doesn't work that way. All right, these guys are cruising. Let's give them a big round of applause for helping. Thank you so much, guys. Awesome. Thank you, guys. Be careful getting off the stage. We have to be careful with this science, guys. Because when it relies on assumptions too much, too many unknowns that did not get taken into consideration, your experiment may actually fall apart on you. Here's a couple problems. Do we know the starting conditions? No. So then how can you start measuring from a certain point going forward if you don't even know the starting conditions? That's a problem. Have the conditions always been the same? Don't know. All right. Seems like that would be important to know. Have there been any contaminations? We just ignore that one. Because if you're a scientist, you know that you're doing an experiment and there's a contamination halfway through your experiment, guess what? The experiment is over. It's useless. Isn't it amazing that they would calculate and assume that there's never been a contamination? What about all the variations in the results? That's literally what they do for like Nazi Helms. They throw out all the ones that don't fit into the timeline that has been established by that worldview. And they throw away all the other ones. No, that science doesn't work. But this one, that's the one we like. That's how it is. Scary. Okay, so here we go. Here's the question. The dictionary says that real science needs what? Two things. All right, somebody that hasn't been up yet. How about this young man right here? What do you think? I'm gonna come down. Do you remember what the dictionary said? Not sure? What is it? Observation? That's good. What's the other one? Experimentation. Very good. A big round of applause. Let's give them a big round of applause and give them a awesome. All right. These guys are paying attention. Good job, guys. Okay, here's another one. Changes. According to evolution, we saw our slime, right? According to evolution, things have been changing. That's a lot of change from slime to this. Let me give you this illustration. So, dogs. How many of you guys have dogs? Lots of people have dogs. Excellent. Do you guys believe that you all have the exact same breed of dog? Of course not. No, they're all different. The interesting thing is, just a few hundred years ago, there was only a few kind of dog varieties. But man discovered that they could mix the breeds and get certain characteristics to be permanent. And so they started mixing the breeds, and they're like, hey, cool, look at this and look at that. We can keep mixing them and keep making more dogs and more dogs, and they kept mixing the dogs. And it's like, cool, now there's hundreds of kinds of dogs, and we're discovering that there's like no limit to the amount of varieties of dogs that we can make by just mixing the dog breeds. The question is, because a lot of people would say, look at all this change. Look at evolution in action, because just a couple of hundred years ago there was only a couple of dog varieties, and now look how much change. But are we really seeing evolution? Because if you ask me, this really looks like variety. Dog is one kind of animal, right? How many kinds of animals do we see here? We're still seeing dogs. What we're seeing is variety. You can't say this is evolution, because then you have to say, look, the dog has changed into a dog. Because it's the same. I mean, if this were really evolution, then we'd see a picture of like a penguin over here somewhere. Or a tomato, right? Something different. But all we're seeing in the world, naturally speaking, today is variety, which is not evolution. God created variety. He gave our DNA such complexity that we can mix and get all sorts of interesting colors and shapes and sizes. But we're all still dogs. We're all still humans. We're all still, whatever the kind is, it's still the same. We're just seeing variety. Check it out. This is one of the newest varieties of dog, newest breeds. It's called a boxer bull. Boxer bull. We can pet him on the nose here. Hey, doggy. You guys okay? Crazy dog. Oh, the little guys. We're safe. We're safe. No, we yeah, very good. Proof that dogs can also have a bad hair day. There you go. It must be like summertime and nobody like that. You know what? They're all just dogs. There's such cool variety of dogs, but the simple explanation to look at here is they're still just dogs. There's no evidence whatsoever that they're changing into something beyond or different from dogs. Just more dogs. Everything in nature is the same, guys. So we look at flowers like an orchid, and you'll see that the orchid is a specific kind of flower. And we can have all sorts of variety within that kind, but it's not changing into a rose or any other kind of flower out there. It is only limited by biology to be an orchid. Same thing with everything. Your beetles. You have lots of different, there's actually millions of species of beetles, but they're all maybe some adults. They're all still just beetles. There's no evidence that they're changing into something else. Everything in nature is exactly the same. It doesn't matter if it's birds or bugs or sea fish or, whatever. All we see is variety. Now, this is a drawing that you would see in an evolution teaching science book. The idea is that the branches have been changing and evolving, right? Here at the bottom would be our slime. And the slime evolved all by itself and changed into different things. And this branch over here went towards insects and worms and crabs and spiders. This branch evolved into fish and frogs and reptiles and birds and mammals. Okay. Interesting. Let's take a look at a couple of these. These are two creatures that are on that branch over there. Let's just look for a moment at the way that these creatures breathe. Now, fish breathe through there. Very good. Mammals breathe through their lungs. Two completely different ways of breathing. Totally different breathing mechanisms. Yet, they're on the same branch. You know what that means? Automatically, that means that they must have had some sort of common ancestor that they came from. The problem is, when we look at the fossil record, we don't find a single example of a common ancestor. We see this way of breathing, and we see that way of breathing, and both of them are extremely complex, and there's nothing in common about them. Here's another one. How you're born. Reptiles, born from eggs. Mammals, born alive. Even the reptiles are cold-blooded, mammals are warm-blooded. Again, totally different features about these creatures. But in the fossil record, there's nothing to show that they would be common in the past. Check out these guys. We have a crab and a worm. These are on that other branch on the right, on the left side. Look at their skeletal system. Now, of course, us, we have our skeleton on the inside, right? Crabs have it on the... Worms have no skeleton. Totally different. Yet, because they put these on the same branch, it automatically means they must have had some sort of common ancestor. look in the fossil record, none exist. That's because those branches are assumed. Because when they try to explain how all this got here, they just draw those branches in and assume. Because science doesn't actually really back it up very well. This is, scientifically speaking, this is what we're seeing out there. We see all sorts of variety of nature and creatures all over the world, and it's profound how much variety there is. And the cool thing is when we look at what the Bible says in Psalms, oh Lord, what a variety of things you have made. In wisdom you have made them all, and the earth is full of your creatures. That's what we're seeing out there. Testing, seeing, observing. We don't see those branches. They're assumed. Anybody recognize this guy? Very good. Dragonfly. This comes from a museum that has a little sign on the bottom that says it's about 500 million years old. Okay. Now, has any of you guys seen one of these recently? Okay. Have you noticed that they pretty much look exactly the same? So doesn't that kind of beg to ask, why didn't the dragonfly change then? Why is the dragonfly exactly the same as it was 500 million years ago? Yet, everything else has made enormous leaps of change without leaving any evidence, and we still have our dragonfly. So which one is it? Massive amounts of change or no change? Still the same. Does that mean our dragonfly reached perfection in its design? Didn't have to change anymore? Didn't have to evolve and survive anymore? That is an ant. The ant, anybody recognize this goldish stuff it's in? Yeah, amber. It's like a sap. It's like a sticky stuff. Again, this comes from a museum, and this came from Eastern Europe, saying it's 300 and something million years old. Ants still look the same today. Why didn't these guys continue to change and evolve? Doesn't quite make sense. How about that? Snake, very good. Starfish, awesome. Good show! Hey, here we go. Yes or no? Are dating machines completely reliable? Alright, I'm going to go with the young lady this time. How about this young lady here? No, they're not reliable. They're pretty cool, but they're not 100% reliable. Let's give her a big round of applause. Come on! Awesome. Let me give you a prize. Possible. Yeah, alright. Alright, how many of you guys have heard of Charles Darwin? Okay, he made this idea of evolution really popular. The interesting thing is, in his famous book of Origins, on the Origins book, he writes, why don't we find evidence for evolution in the fossils? Whoops. That's a problem. He wrote it in his book. It's in his famous book on the origin of species. Why don't we find evidence for evolution in the fossils? This is what he wrote to his best friend when the book was being published. My ideas about evolution are not based on science. In his own words, in his hand, written. He knew that this was just an idea trying to explain naturally how all these things came about. But he was the first one to admit, hey guys, this is just an idea. This is not science. But of course, you know what happened? They got a hold of this idea, they just ran away with it because, hey, finally we have a way to explain the universe without having to include God. He thought the eye was so incredibly fascinating because it's so complex. This is what he wrote. To think the eye could have evolved is absurd. He used that word, absurd. Because he recognized how complex the eye is. If you think about it, how complex the eye is and what it has to do with the muscle and sending the signal to the brain and recognizing what you're seeing and not seeing and colors and movement. It's incredible what the eye does. And he knew that. And he said, to think that so many moving parts could have just evolved and put themselves into this exact shape and machine all by itself without a designer, it's absurd. So, just a quick overview of what we've gotten so far. A universe that comes from nothing, it's not scientific. I'm sorry. Changing species, really, we don't really have good evidence. We have some assumptions, we have some miscalculations, and some guesses. Dating machines, take your pick which answer is right, because otherwise you're just guessing. Making assumptions is not quite solid science. Evidence that's actually showing variety, not evolution, that's a problem. Creatures that didn't evolve, why didn't those guys evolve? Hard to explain. And even Darwin himself had his doubts, and he wrote about them in his book. If you ask me, guys, you have to have a lot of faith to believe in evolution. More than creation, I agree with you. The interesting thing is a lot of secular people don't know or are in denial. You actually need a lot of faith to believe in this. You can believe whatever you want. Hey, it's a free country. But be careful, because if you're trying to find and discover the truth, then it's not just about taking a pick at whatever you want to believe. And why do we see this? Why Satan is working so hard to cover the truth of this world. I don't want to be tricked. I don't want you guys to be tricked. I don't want to be deceived. Let's look at some evidence for creation. Number one, we believe that the Bible is true. That book is special to us because we believe it was God's Word. And God is God that doesn't lie, and that He's perfect, and that He's true. So we believe that the Bible is true. That's part of our evidence. Again, having faith is part of our structure as well. Now, the interesting thing is, although the Bible is one book, there's actually a lot of other historical evidence that supports what the Bible says. And I find that cool evidence in favor of the Bible being true. When other historians and other documents and other writings all confirm and say, yep, we saw that. Yep, we were there. Yep, this happened. For example, places. Anybody recognize this place? Jerusalem, the Wailing Wall. This wall was built by King Herod. Now, maybe you remember King Herod in the Bible story. He was the king who was king when baby Jesus was born. Remember? And the wise men tried to come and talk to him and figure out where he was, and he tried to trick them and that whole thing. This is a wall that's still there today, built by King Herod. That's cool. I'm like, yeah, there it is, and it's right there in the Bible. Boom. That's cool. Also, events that can be confirmed in the Bible. Now, this is a archaeological ruin. This place is called Jericho. How many of you guys have heard of the city of Jericho? You guys remember the story of the Bible where the children of Israel marched around the city walls for 7 days, and on the seventh day they blew their trumpets. And what happened to the walls? They fell down. And this is one of those cool archaeological ruins because they can't explain why the walls in this place fell down a certain way that they fell down, which is very unusual. And the inside is burned up, just like it says in the Bible it was. That's cool. There's a lot of archaeological evidence in support of the Bible. There's people that are also documented in history as far back as Abraham. We're talking about other historical documents that also refer to Abraham as being a real person. Not just a biblical character. That's pretty cool. There's also artifacts. Those are little objects and trinkets and coins and stuff that refer to people or places or kings or kingdoms that we find right in the Bible. And there's also prophecies that have been fulfilled. Now, prophecies are really cool. The Bible is awesome at this because it tells you what's going to happen in the future. And there's hundreds of prophecies that have already been fulfilled. That's amazing that this book can do that, if you think about it. To me, these are all just little bits of clues that help us understand and trust that God's Word is the truth. I'm going to run out of fossils. Here we go. In nature, do we actually observe evolution or just variety? All right, let's go to this side. How about you, sir? Yeah. Variety, very good. A big round of applause. There you go. Just variety. Just lots of variety. More evidence for creation. Information now. We're talking about information. Does anybody know what that is? DNA. Very good. DNA. So this is an actual picture of DNA. This is just kind of a drawing of what it looks like when you magnify it a lot under the microscope. DNA is basically like a big giant blueprint. Tons of information about who we are and all the different varieties within us. Now this stuff is really tiny. And just to give you an example of how tiny it is, let's say we take one of these DNA strands and we stretch it out. But it's too small for the naked eye to see. So we're going to have to join it with a few others in order to just be able to see it. Here's what we're going to do. We're going to take our DNA strand and we're going to join it with 40,000 more. And we're going to make like a rope. You know how big it is now? That's as thick as one of your hair. That's how small DNA is. But that's nothing. Here's the shocker. One strand of DNA has the same amount of information that you find in 1 million pages of encyclopedia. One strand. And this is not just random crazy letters and numbers. This is an exact, very specific code. More complex than an encyclopedia. Now, would anybody believe in encyclopedias that evolved? Yeah, just some wind kind of blew it together. What about all the information and the text and the letters and the pictures in alphabetical order and no mistakes? Yeah, it just happened all by itself. It was amazing. Nobody would believe that. Everybody sees an encyclopedia set and they know somebody wrote it. Somebody edited it. Somebody took all those pictures, right? Yet this is millions of times more complex. You guys have heard of Bill Gates, right? Microsoft. He was fascinated with how complex DNA was, so this is a comparison he made. DNA is like a computer program, but far, far more advanced than any software ever created. And a lot of people see computer programming code and they're like, whoa, that's complex, that's a mess. Again, DNA, millions of times more complicated and more advanced. And we're expected to believe it wrote itself? Who would believe the OS on your iPhone wrote itself? No, there's a team of guys writing those things. It's like going to a junkyard, and you see all this junk laying around, and you're like, whoa, what a mess. That's an old car, and that's an old refrigerator, and you're just looking around, and all of a sudden, you see in the distance a tornado! And it's a big F4 tornado, and it's coming right at the junkyard. And of course, you want to get somewhere safe, so you duck down, and you hide out, and you ride out the storm. And you can see that the tornado went right through, you can hear it. It goes right through the middle of the junkyard. And you can hear everything up there getting thrashed around and smashed around. And finally, the tornado moves off. And you're listening, and you're listening, and you're listening, and you're like, you open the door and you work your way up to the top, and then when you get out into the junkyard, you are shocked with what you see. One of these. A brand new jumbo jet 747, fresh paint, newest software, best technology, complete with a pilot just sitting there. How many of you guys would believe that little fairy tale? Because evolution is asking you to believe far more than that. This is one of the most complex machines that humans have made. Nobody would believe the airplane, the 747, built itself. When you ask scientists what's the most complex thing in the entire universe, you know what the answer is every single time? The human brain. Everybody agrees that the human brain is by far the most complex organism, machine, whatever you want to call it, in the universe. Yet evolution's explanation is that our brain evolved all by itself. Nobody designed it, nobody wrote it, nobody created it, it just happened by itself. I'm sorry, but if you have somebody tell me that this thing just evolved all by itself without any creative design or input from anybody, normally people would say they're crazy. All right, here's another illustration. I have a dog. Is there a 4-year-old volunteer that would be willing to help me? Is there a 4-year-old? 4? You're 4, buddy? Can you come up and help me for a second? Awesome. Thank you, sir. Oh, she's 4. I think she's a little messy. She's not quite walking yet. All right, here's my buddy. Thank you. We get more volunteers. Yeah, come on up there. Thank you for helping me. How are you? You can look that way so everybody can see you. I know, it's kind of hard to see them because of the light. So here's what we're going to do. In my pocket, right here, I have $2. Okay? But one of the dollars is fake, and one of the dollars is real. I want to see if you can figure out which one is which. Okay? Don't help them. Okay, so here's $1. You can see George Washington and the 1. Here's another $1. It's very, very similar. There's a George Washington and the 1. Which one do you think is the real dollar? Is this a real dollar? That looks like that one? Or do you think this is the real dollar? You're right, that is the real dollar. Very good. You can keep it. Hey! All yours. Thank you. Good job, buddy. Good job. And let me tell you, I pick on 4-year-olds on purpose because these are the littlest guys out there. And do you think for a moment that even 4-year-olds want to have the truth? They deserve the truth. And everybody up from that age, all the way up to any age possible, we all want the truth. Nobody wants to go to 7-Eleven with this to buy candy. They'll laugh at you. They'll say, that's a fake. Come with the real deal. Remember, we don't want the fake. We don't want to be tricked. We don't want to be deceived. We want the real deal, and even our children deserve to have the truth. All right, do we have another volunteer that can help me? Sorry, man, I'm just bugging you guys. Just checking to see if you guys are paying attention. You guys are very good, very good. Next time I'll bring $100. Oh, I heard that. Be careful what I say. Let me get the money back. All right, here's another piece of evidence for you guys to look at. Telling time. How do we tell time? I mean, yeah, we look at our phone or we look at our watch or whatever. But the actual way that we truly tell time is by looking up into space. For example, our planet Earth is constantly rotating on its axis. How long does it take to go around one time? Very good. 24 hours. You're at the roll. Here's another one. The moon is also constantly orbiting Earth. It does one big giant circle around the Earth. How long does it take to do that? Very good. The short version is a month. That's how we measure the month. You guys are on a roll. How long does it take for the Earth and its moon to go around the sun? One big giant time. 1 year. 1 year. Very good. 365.24 days. You guys are good. Because we don't look at some computer to rely on the time and look up into space. All right, here's another one for you guys. What in space takes 7 days, a week, to happen? Did you hear what he said? He said nothing. Wait a second, how could that be? Because everything that we use to measure time, you know, the day, the month, and the year. What do you mean there's nothing in space that takes 7 days to happen? It's true. There's nothing in space that takes 7 days to happen. So then, wait a second. Why do we all follow a 7-day week? Where did that come from? Why do we have to have Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday? Where did that come from? Do you know? Where? What's it? At creation. You guys know what creation means, right? The Bible says right there in Genesis, God created for 6 literal days. An evening and a morning, not millions of years periods. An evening and a morning, 6 times. And it says he created this, and then this, and then this, and then this. And he was done. It was awesome. And he said, wow, let's have the 7th day to put this all together and say this is a complete week and rest. And this is why we come and worship. Amen. And honor God on this day. Amen. The Sabbath day is a special day because it is the end of creation week. It's not just some random day. Was God tired after creating? No. This day was a gift for us to complete creation. And he did it on purpose, not so that we can just ignore it. And the cool thing is, the whole planet follows a 7-day week. The interesting thing is, a lot of people don't even know why we follow a 7-day week. You do all your stuff, you go to school, you go to work, you do all your business, and then on the 7th day, you gotta slow down, stop, charge your batteries. And then we keep going again. And let me tell you, historically speaking, there's cultures that have tried the 8-day week and cultures that tried a 10-day week. And of course, as you can imagine, it was a train wreck. Because how can you expect people to go that long without being able to regroup and charge their batteries? God knew what he was doing because he created our bodies. And he says, 6 days, that's it. Do everything you got to do, but then take that 1 day to charge your batteries. It's like asking somebody, no, you don't need to sleep at night. We need to sleep at night. Because God created us. And just the same, he made us to be able to do all our stuff in 6 days and then stop on the 7th day and do this. Amen. And interestingly, all those, like I said, those 8-day, 10-day weeks, they all had to go back to the 7-day week. Can you guys imagine going to school for like 8 days in a row? Adults go to work for 8 days in a row, 9 days in a row? All right, more evidence for creation. Life comes from life. Interesting, we look around and we see lots of life on earth. And this is a law of nature. It's called biogenesis. That means all living things had to come from other living things. Interesting though, because in the same breath they'll say that, oh no. But wait, at the beginning all life came from non-life, like our slime. So which one is it? You can't just have 2 natural rules that conflict each other. You just finish saying all life comes from life, and then you say, no, but there was an exception at the beginning. Life came from non-life. No. You can't have your cake and eat it too. The flood. I'm picking on this story for a quick second because a lot of people say, oh, those stories in the Bible, they're so, And I'm picking on the flood because a lot of people say this is one of the hardest to believe stories in the Bible. I've had people walk up and this, the story of the ark, oh my goodness. How can you guys preach that stuff? How can you even believe that stuff? So I've actually made a presentation just on this one particular story because a lot of people aren't aware of how much evidence there is on our planet in favor of this event. And here's just a couple of quick illustrations. I don't know how many of you guys know this, but the Bible story of the flood is 1 out of 300 documents on our planet that talk about this event. 1 of 300. Every main culture across the space of history and time has it in their story, in their legend, in their history. I mean, every Assyria, Babylonia, Persia, Syria, Asia Minor, Greece, Egypt, Italy, Lithuania, China, Russia, India, all of them have the story of the flood in their history, in their legend. It's not just the Bible. Here's a classic illustration. This is the ancient Chinese word for boat. A large boat. It's made up of 3 characters. That one, that one, and that one. But when we separate those 3 characters, it actually forms 3 different words, which is a vessel of 8 people. Now, why would the ancient Chinese, thousands of years ago, pick those 3 words in particular to describe a large vessel? How many people were on the ark? 8. Why did they pick exactly that? I agree. We also see that the world is organized in layers, the dirt underneath us. Interesting thing about layers, there's only one way to organize dirt in layers, and you need a lot of water. And our whole planet is organized in layers. And it had to be with water. There's no other explanation. Do the math. We also see lots of stuff that was buried and preserved. Again, this process of petrifying a tree, naturally speaking, this doesn't happen today anymore. Nowhere on our planet normal petrification is happening. Something was different in the past, though. Something happened to cause all these trees to be rapidly buried and preserved. Praise the Lord. Fossils. Yeah, praise the Lord, right? We see this in plants as well. It's cool because, this is what a living fern looks like. This is what a fossil fern looks like. Please note that the fossil of the fern, at the moment that it was buried, it was alive. You know what that means? Rapid burial. Nothing slow. And we find this example over and over and over all over the world. Rapid burial buried all sorts of living things all over the world. Coal. Coal is made from biomass, which is mostly trees. Now, at the flood, I'm assuming the world was covered with trees. Did they just vanish? Or did they get buried in layers with water by the millions and billions? Because that's where we find them today. You find lots of creatures that were fossilized. Again, you go to the ocean, this process of fossilizing a fish does not happen. Something was different in the past, causing it to happen extensively. Tallest mountain in the world is? Very good. Interesting thing that you find if you go to the top of Mount Everest and many of the highest mountains in the world, marine fossils. Clams, shells, you name it. What are these doing up there? Because I've never seen a little guy mountain climbing like, hey, the evidence is obviously clear. At one point or another, either that mountain was covered or that mountain was a lot lower. And the Bible actually does talk about the mountains being raised after the flood. Tectonic plates moving and colliding against each other is still happening today. Those mountains, the waters didn't have to cover Mount Everest at 29,000 feet. It's that those mountains were a lot lower back then. They got pushed up. The interesting thing is, clams like this one, you'll notice that it's in its closed position, right? Now, you guys have plenty of beaches around here. You guys have been to the beach and you find these, but then they're in their open position. That's because when these die of normal causes, that little muscle relaxes and it opens. That's how they die. That's a normal death. But in the fossil record, we find them shut. You know what that means? Rapid burial. Something came so quickly that this clam didn't even see it coming. It was like, and it was. It died in its closed position, unnatural. This is not how they normally die. This was buried alive, rapidly. And here's the kicker. These are the most common fossils on our planet, and they're all in their closed position. All died of unnatural death. Did not get to die the normal way. This happened all over the world. Do the math. You compare what we see in nature, and you compare what you read in the Bible, every single time. Imagine. World history. So, yeah, there's a lot of old stuff out there, old drawings, old documents, old carvings, old buildings, old everything, old history. The cool thing is, you ask each one of these studies, and you ask, what's the oldest of that? What's the oldest of that? What's the oldest building? What's the oldest drawing? Guess what? They all go back to about 5,000 years ago. Human history seems to have started going forward about 5,000 years ago. Wait a second. Evolution says that humans have been around for almost 1 million years. Well, guess what? History disagrees. Because history can only provide evidence for the last 5,000 years or so. And the interesting thing is, when humans appeared on the map, historically speaking, they weren't these dumb evolving brutes. They were highly intelligent. I mean, they were building pyramids. We don't even know how they build pyramids today. They were mapping the stars. They had indoor plumbing. Interesting. That history even disagrees. All right, it's time for another game show. Here we go. The question is, where did the 7-day week come from? All right, let me see if I can come down here a little bit. How about you? Where did creation? She says creation. Is he right? Yeah! A big round of applause. Let's give her an awesome. Awesome. There you go. You're very welcome. Awesome. You guys are paying attention. I'm so proud of you guys. You guys are awesome. All right. We can go on for hours, but this is the last one. Last piece of evidence that we're going to take a look at. Intelligent. Why? I want to eat. I'm with you though. I'm hungry. All right. Here we go. Last one. Intelligent design. What is intelligent design? Okay, so who is that? Very good. How many of you guys believe that this drawing of Mona Lisa evolved? That it drew itself? Nobody drew it. It just somehow some paint just kind of splattered and there it is. No. That's because you guys are being very intelligent and know that somebody drew it and that somebody is very good. That's intelligent design. When you look at something and you know somebody drew that. When you look at this building, do you think, wow, this building evolved so nicely? Or do you believe somebody designed it, somebody built it? Yeah. That iPhone that you guys have in your pocket, do you guys evolved or do you guys know that somebody designed it? Did you have to be there in order to believe that somebody designed and built your iPhone? No, because you look at it and you know that it's a complex machine. Somebody had to design it. Somebody had to do that drawing of Mona Lisa. That's intelligent design, and you don't need a rocket scientist to know when something complex got designed. As a matter of fact, anything that's complex, anything that's a machine, had to have a designer. So this is an example of what I call low-tech intelligent design, a mousetrap. So I have a mousetrap right here. Yeah. Now the cool thing about the mousetrap is that it's made up of 5 little parts. We have our wooden base, right? We have our little holder. We have our spring. We have our little cheese holder, and then of course a hammer. Let's set the trap for a second here. Does anybody want to let me borrow a finger or a tongue? Very good. Say no. Very dangerous. All right, here we go. So I set the trap. I'll just kind of trip it with my finger. Works very nicely. Question for you guys. Could this mousetrap work with only 4 of the 5 parts? Nope. Has to have all 5 of them. Otherwise it will not work. So you can never say, but it's evolving. Well, if it's evolving, it should still be catching mice. But it can't catch mice with only 4. And it has to have 5. You know what that means? Somebody had to take all 5 of these parts, put them together at the exact same time, in the exact same way, and that would be the only chance you could ever catch a mouse. There's no other way. That's intelligent design. Simple, but even a mousetrap shows you that there had to be a designer because it's complex. It's a machine. So if that's low-tech intelligent design, what would be high-tech or medium-tech or something a little higher? Yeah, something like a computer, your iPhone, a rocket ship, a space shuttle, whatever. This would be what I call medium-tech intelligent design because it's a lot more complex, a lot more moving parts, a lot more guys probably involved designing and creating these things. The rule is the more complex it is, the more evidence of a designer. Let me say that again. The more complex it is, the more evidence there was a designer involved. Low tech, medium tech, what would be high tech? How about we try bioluminescence? Fireflies. In Michigan, these are all over the place right now. Amazing little creatures because they have the ability to create 2 chemicals in their body. And when they want to make light, they mix those 2 chemicals in a 3rd compartment, and the 2 chemicals react and make light. It's really cool. Pretty much exactly the same as you see with these glow sticks. There's 2 chemicals inside, but they're separated by this little glass flask. But when you break the glass, you know what happens. The atoms mix, and they react, and they create light. How many of you guys would believe that this stick evolved? Somebody had to design it. Even though it's simple, somebody had to design this stick. Why would anybody believe that this little creature could have evolved when it's millions of times more complex? It can fly, it can reproduce, it can make light, it has living organs? There's no way. If this is hard to believe that it could have evolved, next to my friend right there in the hall. Hey, there you go. Nice catch. You guys like a ninja. Here's one more. Let's look at one more. White blood cells. White blood cells are these cool things in our body. So guys, have you guys ever gotten a cut? Yeah, you've all gotten a cut. But your body was designed so amazingly. You know what happens when you get a cut? White blood cells are in charge of cleaning up. Because you don't want to get any germs or bacteria in your body, right? So your body, your brain says, as soon as you get a cut, your body says, whoa, we've got a cut, people, let's get into action, let's go to work. White blood cells go to clean up. This is an actual video clip of your white blood cell. Look how it's chasing around the bacteria. It's like a living machine. Got it. Guys, there's millions of miracles happening in your body right now. Every second of your life. Everything around you. It's designed everywhere. Those trees out there, they're not there just to look good. They're making air for you. It's everywhere. And if you ask me, guys, when you look at all that evidence, it points to the Creator. Amen. And that Creator is my King.
The Bible says, my King is the King of the Jews. He's the King of Israel. He's the King of righteousness. He's the King of the ages. He's the King of heaven. He's the King of glory. He's the King of kings. And he's the Lord of lords. That's my King. I wonder do you know it? My King is a sovereign King. No means of measure can define his limitless love. He's enduringly strong. He's entirely sincere. He's eternally steadfast. He's immortally graceful. He's imperially powerful. He's impartially merciful. Do you know him? He's the greatest phenomenon that has ever crossed the horizon of this world. He's God's Son. He's the sinner's Savior. He's the centerpiece of civilization. He's unparalleled. He's unprecedented. He is the loftiest idea in literature. He's the highest personality in philosophy. He's the fundamental doctrine of theology. He's the only one qualified to be an all-sufficient Savior. I wonder if you know him today. He supplies strength for the weak. He's available for the tempted and the tried. He sympathizes and he saves.
the enemy is out there to challenge us, or to deceive us, or to trick people to not know this amazing news. Remember, Satan hates God. He'll do everything he can to prevent people from knowing about him. But we have been given a task to share this. It's our job. It's what we've been called to do. And the Bible tells us right there, all things were made through him. And nothing that has been made was made without him. Yeah, we've gotten pretty smart at reorganizing stuff. But if you think about it, we can't even make dirt. God is the one who has created everything. And even though we messed up and we sinned, God still gave us an escape route. He sent his son, a God, to die for us so that we can have a second chance. And why would he do this? Have you thought about that? Why would he do this? And the answer is simple. Because he loves us. Because he created us. The Creator loves his creations. Kids, if you've ever made a little Lego dude, you love that little Lego dude you made. Well, God made us, and that's why he wants to save us. And he's given us this amazing gift of salvation. It's the last step to understanding that started at the beginning of creation. It's a process that takes us all the way through to understanding that the end of this is that God wants to save us, his creations. But the question is, will you accept this gift? Because I can't force it on anybody. Your mom can't force it on you guys. Each one of you guys has to make that decision all by yourself. Nobody can make it for you. You guys have to make a decision in your life to say, God is my creator. I accept that. And I want to follow that God for the rest of my life. I want to do that too. And when you guys get bigger, and I know some of you guys have done this already, the decision you make leads you into baptism. That's like a way of saying, yes, hey, world, I want to follow God. I want to honor him with the way I live and everything I do. But that decision starts with you guys. It's in your hands. It's in your hands too. Because you don't have to be little to make this decision. It's for everybody. This God is for everybody. But the invitation is for you to accept him. Let's pray. Father, Creator, we love you. We worship you. We know you're the Creator. We accept you. We love you so much. Thank you for everything you've done for us.